So I was reflecting on this moment in history, in financial and economic history. So this is 2015. This is 50 years since the efficient markets revolution started. Because I'll date the beginning of the efficient markets revolution with the publication in 1965 of Eugene Fama's PhD dissertation at the University of Chicago. He published it in their journal, the Journal of Business. And what he found in his dissertation is that stock prices are approximately random walks, which he took as a sign of perfection, that the markets are so perfect they can't be forecasted, so the changes in prices look random. That was 50 years ago. That was a revolution, but it was accompanied by another revolution in finance and more broad economics. It was mathematical finance and mathematical economics. And that revolution was dominated by an assumption that people are smart and rational and profit maximizing. Let's build a mathematical model. If everyone is smart and everyone is maximizing profits, what will happen? It's an interesting mathematical problem, but it led to a time period in which, I think it led to the Reagan-Thatcher revolution, where people wanted to leave, markets were so beautiful and perfect that they wanted to leave them alone, get the government off the markets. But that isn't the end of the story of revolutions in finance and revolutions in economics. I think I'll make it 35 years since the beginning of another revolution, a counter-revolution in finance. That's called behavioral finance. So behavioral finance is finance augmented by psychology or sociology. We had thought with the work of Eugene Fama that sociology was gone, discredited, had no role in economics, and it was expelled in disgrace for a while. But then people started to think again, you know, I don't think these markets are so perfect. I don't believe it. In my case, I wrote a PhD dissertation when I was a graduate student in 1972, which was very efficient markets oriented. But I just felt like I don't believe my own dissertation. And so I started attacking my own dissertation later, thinking, I don't believe it. And it's because the people I know are not rational. I'm not rational. My wife's not rational. I bet you might admit that you've made mistakes for psychological reasons in the past as well. It is now 6 to 8 years, depending on how you date it, since the financial crisis. The crisis that sometimes called the Great Recession, the crisis that was, you know, Lehman Brothers, Hank Paulson, etc. And that crisis changed our attitudes again, and it made us more mistrustful of financial markets. But it had a different tone to it. Now it was not whether markets are efficient or psychological, it's whether they're corrupt and evil. The word bankster came back. You know this word? It rhymes with gangster. It was popular in the Great Depression, and then the word just dropped out of our language, but it came back, as if bankers were kinds of criminals. Now, I'm going on my chronology. It is now 3 years since I spoke in this venue, and I know at least two of you, Shiller and Cowan, both were there. I don't know if any others of you were, but I'm going to just refer to that briefly. I spoke then about a book I had just written called Finance and the Good Society. And what I was struggling then with was these ideas that it's all evil. The system is just selfish and dishonest, corrupt. And they should be going to jail, those guys. The reason they're not going to jail shows there's something corrupt in the government as well. Well, I didn't feel that exactly, although some people probably should go to jail. That's always true. Not everyone is nice. But I wanted to write a book then about the good society, about what are we going to do? Don't we need finance? There's a public impression that finance is just all about making a small number of people super rich. But I thought that's not what it is or what it should be. It's the whole structure of how things get done in our society. Finance is about financing activities. If you want something done, you have to finance it. And what does that mean? It means providing the resources for some activity to be done, providing a group institutional structure that organizes people, incentivizing people to set aside their own individual needs and wants, and thinking about the organization's needs and wants. It is 2 years since I won the Nobel Prize jointly with Eugene Fama. This was an interesting development. The Nobel Foundation sometimes likes to, this is my interpretation, likes to give their prize to figures that are still controversial, and they don't know yet who's right. So they hedge their risks, and they give it to both sides of the controversy. My own view, I spent a whole week now with Eugene Fama. Now he knows I've criticized him, but we sort of got along for the whole week in Stockholm, called Nobel Week. I personally think he's a brilliant man, but brilliance can be expressed in different ways. You know, especially in economics, it's kind of politicized. You have to decide whether you're a Republican or a Democratic economist, and then you're careful to choose your words carefully. You're always factually correct, but you have a different sense of who's the good guy and who isn't. I try to stay away from politics, but it's hard to avoid. So I thought after the week was up that he and I actually don't disagree about any solid statement of fact. It's all about interpretation. And he wants to think of business people as wonderful and brilliant and always right conditional on information. And I have a more nuanced view of human nature than that. Partly maybe because my wife is a psychologist and I have to live with her all the time. But